Good evening. Today is Tuesday, April 30th, 2019. This is the start of the Hanson Board of Selectmen meeting. This meeting is being televised by Whitman Hanson Cable Access. Please rise for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening, Hanson. Here are this week's announcements. Town meeting is next Monday, May 6th at 7:30 p.m. at the Hanson Middle School. A quorum of 100 registered voters is required to conduct town's business. The Town of Hanson 2019 street listing books are now available for purchase at the town clerk's office for $10. The Historical Society annual dinner will be tomorrow, Thursday, May 2nd, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. The speaker will be Ann Barrett, portrays Mary Chipman's Lawrence, Life Abroad, a Whaling Ship. Tickets are $15 apiece. For tickets, please call 781-294-8645. Absentee ballots are now available at the town clerk's office for the annual town election being held on Saturday, May 18th. Any registered voter who is unable to vote in person on election day due to absence from town, physical disability, religious belief, may obtain an absentee ballot. Voters may absentee vote in person at the town clerk's office or by mail. Applications for absentee ballots will be accepted at the town clerk's office until 12 o'clock noon, Friday, May 17th. For more information, call the town clerk's office at 781-293-2772. The Town of Hanson and the Hanson Business Network are teaming up for Hanson Day to be held on June 1st from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. on the Town Hall Green. Local churches, businesses, civic organizations, and other groups are invited to be an exhibitor at this event. There's no cost for participation in this event, and table and chairs will be provided if needed, and a space on the Town Hall Green. We're asking exhibitors to engage attendees by having demonstrations, games, crafts, or any other type of activity. Please note, items will not be allowed to be sold other than those to benefit the 200th Anniversary Committee. If you're interested, please contact Laura Fitzgerald-Kemet or Josh Sager. Volunteers are needed on the following committees: the 200th Anniversary, Capital Improvement, Cultural Council, Economic Development, Elder Affairs, Finance, Historical Commission, Memorial Day Patriot Observance, Memorial Field Trustees, Recreation, Zoning Board Alternate. Applications for appointment and more information of the committees are available on the town website at hanson-ma.gov. And the upcoming meetings will be Monday, Selectmen will be meeting Monday, May 6th at 7 p.m. before town meeting, and Selectmen's meeting will be also on May 7th if town meeting needs to be continued, and then on Tuesday, May 21st at 7 p.m.
Thanks, Matt.
Mr. Chairman, I must not have updated the iPads with the announcements because Friday there'll be an Arbor Day event at 10 a.m. at the Hanson Library. The public's welcome. That's due to the postponement of last week's event. The Hanson Cub Scouts Pack 34 presents Touch-A-Truck on Saturday, May 4th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the McQuon School. Tickets are $5 per person and $20 max per family. And check out their Facebook at hashtag Pack34TAT. I don't do Facebook, so it took me a second, sorry. And Whitman Hanson Dollars for Scholars will host their annual electronic recycling day at the former McQuon School on Saturday, May 11th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Residents and non-residents can dispose of their unwanted electrical items, which they may not be able to do otherwise. And the proceeds will go to Dollars for Scholars Awards Program. For more information, go to www.whitmanandhanson.dollarsforscholars.org. That's it.
Thanks, Mary. Okay, on the new business, first we have the library trustees building update and presentation. Karen, is that something you're going to take care of for us? Welcome.
I'm Karen, the library director. So the library is going to be doing a presentation at town meeting, and we want to give the board a preview beforehand. So I'm just going to go over some of the highlights. In January 2018, the Board of Trustees initiated a planning project to look at library services that are desired by the community and the current condition and future viability of the existing building to meet community needs. And this project is funded by a state grant. So to assist with the project, the trustees hired library consultant Ruth Cole, and they appointed a planning committee, which consisted of myself, 2 trustees, and 4 community representatives. The first step was to gather community input. So to do that, we created a survey in various formats, We held focus groups, the consultant interviewed library staff, and we had public comments, comment boards available in the library. And some of the questions we asked the community related to library services, and others were focused more on the library building. So regarding services, we learned that people value the ability to borrow materials through a shared network, both in the traditional sense and through digital library services. People wanted more programs and classes, and that was actually the #1 priority for survey and focus group participants, was programming. They want access to current technology and staff who can help them use it. They wanted expanded hours, especially for people who work, so Sundays and evenings. And these are just some of the things we learned. Ruth, the consultant who's going to be doing the presentation at town meeting, will go into more detail for you. So based on this input, the planning committee crafted a 5-year strategic plan, and that outlines our service focus. You should all have a copy of that I gave you ahead of time. And then once the strategic plan was completed, it was used as a foundation to create the library building program, and you should have a copy of that as well. And according to state guidelines, we need to look out at least 20 years when creating a building program. So looking at the community input that focused on the aspects of the building, we learned that people want a facility that responds to the role of the public library as a community gathering place. So some of the things that were mentioned were a welcoming, attractive building, a place that people want to spend time, flexibility in the spaces and the furnishings, expanded space for programming as well as large and smaller meeting and study rooms, energy efficient systems, technology that supports both library-owned and personally owned devices, and dedicated spaces for teens and children. And again, these are just some of the takeaways. Ruth is going to be elaborating on that as well. So then Ruth was able to draw several conclusions based on all the things we've done so far. She found that the current building is architecturally appealing and well situated, but she found that it's too small, it's inflexible, and has aging systems and infrastructure. So Ruth and the planning committee worked together and determined 2 options. So the first option would be an extensive renovation and expansion of the current facility. So the current facility is just over 8,000 square feet for the library portion of the building. And Ruth determined that to meet the desired community needs, the building would need to be just under 16,000 square feet, so about double the size. And then the other option would be construction of a new library at a different location. So this is really what we've accomplished so far. We gathered the community input, we created the strategic plan, and then we used that to create the building program. And some of the next steps will be to determine a possible timeline going forward. And then at some point to engage an architect who would develop conceptual drawings based on the information in the library building program. So copies of the strategic plan and the building program are on our website. We also have paper copies available at the library. We are going to have a handout at town meeting that people are going to be able to take as well. And then finally, we're going to be holding a public forum on Thursday, May 16th at 6:30. So if anybody has any questions, they're able to join us then, and we'll be going over, examples of, what we've done and the summary and answer questions. So, is there any questions or?
Is the May 16th at the library?
Yes. Yeah.
Karen, what time does that start?
6:30. So like I said, Ruth is going to be doing the presentation at town meeting, and it'll be a little longer than what I just did there. She'll be giving, she has a PowerPoint, and we'll be going over in more detail. So.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you.
Thanks, Karen, and thanks to the rest of the folks that were on that committee.
Yes.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Okay, next up, town meeting preview. I think that's why we have so many people here.
You think?
All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through each article. I'm gonna pass on the ones that the board hasn't recommended and go through those after, so we can try to get everybody out of here. So when it comes up to your article, if you could just read the article, you don't have to read the explanation. Just read the article and we'll go through it as quick as we can. Anybody have any questions? We'll go through the special first. I'll give you a second while. Okay, Article 1. Selectmen, I don't know who has it.
I move the town vote $6,736 from free cash to pay unpaid bills for fiscal year 2019.
Thank you. Article 2.
I move the town vote to transfer $82,650 from free cash to supplement appropriations previously voted at annual town meeting of May 2018 for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018 for various town departments as printed in the warrant.
Okay, we're gonna hold off on recommending the budget right now. Article 3, Recreation.
Can I just say, Sean, we're gonna go by one.
Yeah.
Call out each item. Sorry. 3.
Who has Article 3?
Yes, mine is.
He doesn't have his glasses.
Mike, can you read Article 3, please?
We have it? Do you have
Yeah.
all the other ones?
I don't.
I've got it right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
To see if the town will vote to transfer a sum of money from free cash to supplement funding from the fiscal year 2019 recreation operating budget or take
Stop.
No, that's,
any other
Nope.
action
No.
relation
He's telling
thereto.
you to stop because
Just
that's
the
where the
motion.
motion should stop.
and the amount is 75,000.
Okay.
That would be coming from free cash. So we'll need it.
No, I believe Diane will.
Is Diane here?
She was.
She was, I saw her earlier. Okay, Article 4, Beth.
I move the town to vote to transfer from free cash $5,500 to purchase new election equipment.
Article 5, Chief Mix.
I move the town to vote to transfer a sum of $7,000 from free cash for the removal and replacement of over 600 square feet of concrete sidewalk at the police station.
Thank you. Article 6, Mr. Hayes.
I move the town to vote to transfer $25,000 from free cash or available funds for the replacement of tiles in 4 classrooms at Hanson Middle School.
Article 7, Mr. Hayes.
Can I ask a
I
question?
move
Is it
the
gonna be
town
free
to-
cash
It's
or-
gonna be free cash, yeah.
Okay, that needs to be changed.
Yeah, I see that.
So just, we're crossing out or available
Right,
funds.
so it needs to stop.
Don't need all available funds, Bob.
Articles, yeah.
Okay, you wanna hear 7, Kenny?
Please, yeah.
I move the town vote to transfer $15,000 from free cash or available funds reimbursed Whitman Hanson Regional School District for the purchase and installation of the solar-powered flashing school signs on Indian Head Street, Route 58.
And we remove or available funds again.
Please remember.
Okay.
Okay, Article 8, Thomas Mill Committee. Who's reading that one?
Wait a minute. His Wes isn't looking at the motion. I move the town vote to transfer from free cash $30,000 for improvements to Nathaniel Thomas Mill located at Liberty Street.
Thank you. Article 9.
One moment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Who will be making the motion?
I'm gonna say Mike Means, but I'm just making that up.
You're the most authoritative person here.
Can we maybe reach out to him and make
Yes,
sure
I
he's
will.
gonna be there on Monday? Good, thank you. Article 9, Selectmen.
I move the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to borrow or transfer from free cash, am I saying or available sums here?
Yeah, I have to correct yours, that should be
Okay.
$1 million
Okay. $1 million
for the demolition and
Yep.
remediation.
for the demolition and remediation.
I'm sorry, if we could go over that one more time.
I'm gonna give you a new motion,
Oh, thank you, but,
because it's going to bond council right now, so I want them to look at it.
so
it's
it'll be a
gonna
borrow.
Yeah, it's gonna be a borrow.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Article 10, I move the town vote to transfer $15,000 from free cash to be added to the amounts appropriated in Article 6 of the May 2018 special town meeting for the purpose of replacing existing floors in the senior center and adjoining community rooms. Article 11, Elder Affairs.
11.
I'm sorry, 10. 10.
That you can do it?
Yeah, I just
You just do,
did it.
just did 10.
You like
You just did 10. We're looking
You
for
just did
red.
10.
Article 11, Tree Warden.
I
Mr.
move
Hanlon.
the town vote to transfer the sum of $25,000 from free cash for tree removal along Camp Pawnee Road.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hammond. Article 12,
I move the town vote amend the wage and personnel bylaws, Articles 2-12, classification and compensation, by deleting sections 11A through 11E in its entirety and inserting new sections 11A through 11E as printed in the warrant.
thank you. Chairman of the Wage and Personnel.
That's fine.
We're moving on to the annual town meeting.
Not going
Same thing, we're gonna go through the articles.
Oh, if I may,
Yes,
could, Mr. Hickey, when you introduce us and you give the explanation, can you sort of give, there's always confusion about this article. If you could just make a point that this is housekeeping, it's
Okay.
something we vote on every year, we're just setting the range, we're setting the range of employees' salaries, but people think that we're spending this money rather than just setting a range.
We've got that explanation in
Sure.
there. You're just saying, read the explanation?
Well, or just emphasize it.
Okay, all right.
So we can beef up the explanation, Jim, and then you,
Okay.
after you move the article, you can read the explanation, which I'll change it, just say it's housekeeping.
Okay.
But we did some minor changes to that particular article by changing the range from, the low range from $11 to $12 to meet the minimum wage. So those are the things that will be in there. We can fix that.
okay, annual town meeting, article number 1, Board of Selectmen.
I move the town vote to hear reports of the various town offices, committees, special committees, and act thereon.
Thank you. Article 2, Treasurer.
I move the town vote to authorize the treasurer collector to enter into compensating balance agreements during fiscal 2020 as permitted by Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53F.
Thank you. Article 3, I move the town vote to transfer $20,000 from overlay surplus for the treasurer collector's tax title account. Article 4, Board of Selectmen.
I move the town vote to fix the salary and compensation of all paid elected officers of the town as printed in the warrant.
Thank you. Article 5, Board of Selectmen.
I move the town vote to determine what sums of money the town will raise and appropriate by taxation, transfer from free cash, transfer from town ambulance fund, water department revenue, water surplus, Title V, special revenue fund, MWPAT loan repayment, receipts reserved for appropriation, conservation notice, and intent, conservation notice of intent fund, overlay surplus and fund balance reserved for reduced of future excluded debt to defray the charges and expenses of the town, including debt and interest, to provide for a reserve fund for 2020 fiscal year.
Thanks, Matt. Article 6, who's going to read that for recreation?
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Just before we move on from Article 5.
Yes.
I mean, we're not gonna go through it line by line, but I was just wondering if maybe Mr. Hayes can talk about whether or not there's going to be an amendment offered about the school funding.
We're gonna discuss that after. I want to get through the articles, and then we're going to go back, because the Board of Selectmen still hasn't recommended. Yeah, actually, we did recommend that.
We did.
We're gonna have that discussion after.
But we have subsequent discussion.
I want to try to free up the
As long
room.
as it's there.
I want to try to free up the room, and
Sure.
then we'll get down to the nitty-gritty. Thank you. Article 6, Recreation, can you want to read that one?
I just want to run this by the moderator. We have, as you look at this, we have 3 columns, one the current fiscal year. The FY20 is what the recreation was requesting, and the 3rd column is what FinCom's recommending. After talking to the town accountant, he thought that maybe FinCom should be moving this article and the next article, because when we do the budget, we always do the budget column by the FinCom's recommendation. And he said to avoid confusion, if we just kind of run it the same way, maybe FinCom should be moving that. Are you comfortable with that?
I would agree, yeah.
You agree.
Kevin, you're fine with that?
Okay.
Yeah, and then if somebody wants to make an amendment, they can.
In
They can
working
propose.
with the town clerk.
I'll read it though,
we
'cause we
can't-
got it.
Yeah. We decided it would be easier.
Absolutely.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate the following sums of money to operate the Recreation Department during fiscal year 2020 under the provisions of Master General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53 F and a half, as printed in the warrant under finance recommendations. Okay, and then if the Recreation Commission comes forward and they want to amend it, they would be amending it by recommending the column FY20 amounts. Is that, are you comfortable with that?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Just, you know, before an amendment is offered, I'd like to try and work out whether or not we could take care of that in October, rather than doing it in May.
Correct. I just want to make sure that logistics are okay with you and we'll
No,
go
that's
forward with
fine,
that.
I'll recommend, and I'll emphasize that we're doing
No,
the
I'm talking
finance
about,
committee.
sorry, recreation.
Okay, okay. So we'll have some, Kevin, you're gonna move both, wanna move both of those?
Sure.
You want me to read them now? I don't have to.
No, I just blew through it. And it'll be the same, Article 7 will be the same way. Right now I have Arlene listed, but it will be Kevin. It's pretty much the same verbiage to move the town vote to raise and appropriate the following sums of money to operate the transfer station during fiscal year 2020 under the provisions of Mass General Law 44, Section 53 F and a half, as printed in the warrant column finance recommendations.
And to, since we adjusted the balances in the warrant, we'll probably go back and re-vote our recommendations. The recommendations were the
Okay.
original, right, based on the original.
Okay.
No,
right.
Article 6, we're gonna bring that back up too, because I know there's a couple board members that have some questions on that. So at the very end, we're gonna bring up Article 6 too.
Because when we voted on it, it was for a different dollar amount, and then FinCom, so we just want to.
Yeah, so we have to
Yeah.
go back and re-vote 6
Yep.
and 7,
Yep.
because our recommendations were based on the original article.
Right.
And Mary was able to
Yep.
Okay.
adjust it.
All right, so I'm gonna go down to Article 8, CPC. Is Tom gonna be around, or somebody gonna be around from CPC?
Tom is not going to be around. He's gonna be.
Can
I
Mr.
think, a
Clements move
witness.
it?
Yeah.
I would maybe look to the vice chair of CPC.
Yeah, but you're the vice chair tonight.
No.
No, he's not a CPC. Are
Who
you?
is,
Who's on,
who's the vice chair?
Teresa?
is she here?
Depending on the meeting.
Oh, okay, you know what, it's fine, I'll do it. All right, I move the vote, I move that the town vote to appropriate or reserve from fiscal year 2020 Community Preservation Fund estimated annual revenues and the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for committee administrative expensive, community preservation projects, and other expenses in fiscal year 2020, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation. This is a housekeeping article, it's required under the law. As printed in the warrant. Is that what did somebody just say that to me? Oh, okay. As printed in the warrant. And this is a housekeeping item that's required to allocate the revenue that's received under CPA.
So can somebody talk to Patty about moving that on Monday?
I'm sure she'll
Yes.
be there, and yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Laura. Article 9, capital improvements, let's hold on that one. Article 10,
Which everybody recommends, then that will come out.
is anybody from capital improvements? No? Okay. All right,
I move the town vote to transfer $558,000 from free cash to various department capital accounts as printed in the warrant.
okay, that's 10.
And I'll take each line individually.
Okay. Okay, Article 11, Mr. Hayes.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from, you want to strike a transfer from available funds?
I have a motion for you, Bob, which reads, I move the town vote to transfer $210,945 from free cash to capital accounts for the Whitman Hanson Regional High School items as printed in the warrant. Can you pass that down to Bob?
Okay, Article 12, Mr. Hayes.
Sorry, Article 11, do we know if Whitman is committing to this?
We don't. So we may find out by the time we reach it that they didn't support any of them. At that point, we could pass over and use some of the funds to go into the stabilization.
Or it could be voted, it could be voted at that amount, and it would remain in that account until October.
Okay.
At which time the town meeting could opt to move it, and at which time Whitman may come back and actually fund it through,
Okay.
because my understanding is they anticipate an October town meeting. So you vote that money, it stays there in limbo until town meeting acts on it in October, if we want to move it out.
Okay. Article,
Is there a possibility that, I mean, if we're gonna hear about what Whitman does during the night, should I move that later on in the queue?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I could delay it until we have information. Delay it.
I would suggest that we do, and hopefully we'll have some means to just get the information that's
so is
going
that
on.
the same for Article
currently.
12?
No.
No, I
No,
don't
this
think
is,
so. I think
no,
12
this
going
is solely
It's a Hanson
Hanson.
item.
This is
Hanson
only
expense,
Okay.
yep.
So what I'll do is I'll take this out of order and I'll put it later in the, maybe last. I mean, I'm guessing we're gonna still have a quorum.
Mr. Hayes, 12?
I vote the town will approve $675,000 borrowing authorized by the Whitman Hanson Regional School District to pay costs of designing and carrying out HVAC improvements at Hanson Middle School, Phase 2, including payment of all costs and incidentals.
Thank you. Article 13, Selectmen. That's in Chapter 90.
I move the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept and enter into a contract for the expenditure of any allocated or to be allocated funds by the Commonwealth and/or county pursuant to general laws, Chapter 90, for the construction, reconstruction, and improvements of town roads as printed in the warrant.
Should there be a dollar amount there?
No.
Okay. Article 14, Selectmen.
I move the town vote to transfer $10,000 from free cash for improvements to the former Plymouth County Hospital property under the direction of the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. Article 15, Chief Thompson.
I move the town vote to transfer $48,500 from free cash to cover the cost of a 2-day tactical combat casualty care course.
Thank you. Article 16, I move the town vote to transfer $50,000 from free cash to be added to stabilization. Article 17.
I move the town vote to transfer.
Oh, excuse me one second. Go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry, Jim. Should this article come earlier?
Because we want to get, this is one of the last, really spending ones. So we would have a better idea of what we have left to be able to fund it.
Okay,
You
that
said
makes
that's-
perfect sense. It's just in past.
And it could very well be a situation in which we don't move any of the money, the $211,000, if Whitman's unable to do what Whitman hopefully can do.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Keeley, go ahead. I'm sure somebody has a question about an article.
This says AT&T fraud risk, so I'm passing up my financial security. What were you saying, Mary?
What was that?
Do you want me to do 16, the town stabilization?
Kenny was doing it. Yeah.
Okay, so if you guys want to keep it here, that's fine. I mean, it's.
Well, it may be a case in regards to the $211,000 we just spoke about before. If that doesn't go anywhere on the Whitman side and we're aware of it, by placing this particular article a little later, and especially after the $211,000 article, there could be the opportunity to put more money into stabilization. So that's why it makes sense to do these things a little later, towards the end of all the spending, to see if there is additional funds that we can move around that we didn't anticipate.
Makes sense to me.
Aren't you moving the capital improvement one to the end
Yeah.
anyway?
Yeah.
So we could hold those,
Yeah.
the two
Toby.
stabilization.
The two
Hold them
stabilizations.
until
Yeah,
we find out what's happening in Whitman.
yeah.
Mary, does it really matter what's happening in Whitman? With two different towns, I think one says Whitman, one says Hanson, there is a sign that says entering Whitman, entering Hanson.
It does, but why would,
Why are we holding it?
why,
I mean,
why
I don't
wait?
know.
If Whitman doesn't fund their part of the
high school.
improvements, then we can't move forward with only 40% on those improvements for the high school. If Whitman decides that they're not able to fund their 60%,
We're tying up money.
we're tying up money.
Right.
So we could put it in the school stabilization.
Improvement.
Oh, no, don't disagree. And what we were just saying is there's the opportunity to put that money into the school stabilization account, which is used for improvements to the school, I believe.
All right, we move on. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Hickey,
You want me to read this one now?
Article 17, please.
Everyone ready? I move the town vote to transfer $40,000 from free cash to be added to the Regional Schools Capital Stabilization Fund.
Excellent. Thank you. Mike, you want to do Article 18? That's water.
Oh, I do have it.
Water's got a few of them, the next.
Yeah.
Go to the end as well?
I move the town vote to transfer
Probably.
$6,000 from the water revenue to be added to the 1992 Town Meeting Water Emergency Fund, Article 15.
Okay, Article 19, Mike.
To
Water.
see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $6,000 from water revenue to be added to the oh, am I reading the same one?
Yeah.
Yes, I am. I apologize. I move the town vote to transfer from water surplus $40,000 to repave the parking lot at the Water Department office, 1073 West Washington Street.
Bill Darby will make those.
That was my next question. Article 20, Mike. Water.
I moved the town vote to transfer from water surplus $15,000 to purchase a new VFD, variable frequency drive, for the Crystal Spring Deep Well.
Okay, excellent.
These are all Bill Garvey?
Yep. Okay, we're gonna go down, next, we're gonna do Article 24. Selectmen. Yep, I'm gonna skip over a couple, we're gonna do them at the end.
Because the selectmen haven't recommended them yet.
Oh, okay.
But thank you for noticing.
All right. I move that the town submit to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Legislature a home rule petition to change the use of a certain portion of that parcel of land, approximately 62 acres known as Webster Billings Conservation Area, so-called Article 97 land, as forth in a certain order of taking dated February 25th, 1975, recorded at the Plymouth Registry of Deeds in the book 4050, page 355, on file with the town clerk's office, which order of taking states that the parcel shall be used for conservation purposes, and which portion is specified in the home rule petition to be used as conservation land and wellhead areas purposes, to be removed from any other encumbrances on the title as may be required, and authorized to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dedicate for conservation purposes another suitable parcel of land of equal or greater size and value of that portion of land which has been converted for conservation purposes.
Thanks, Matt. Article 25, assessors. Adopt the minimum value.
I move the town vote to adopt the minimum value of $3,000 for the issuance of personal property tax bills under Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 54.
Thank you. Article 26, Mr. White.
26? No, he's 27.
These are the back.
I have 26 veterans and 27.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, I'm not doing that.
26 is Board
The
of
assessors are going to do that one.
Oh, okay. My apologies.
To see if the town will vote to increase the amount of funding for senior tax abatement program and the Veterans Work-Off Program by $10,000 under the provision of Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5K and Section 5N, or 5N.
Yeah,
All right, I'm sorry.
That was
I
it.
didn't know it
It
ended.
just abruptly stopped.
Tim, you're up. That's what it sounded.
Shortest motion of
I
all.
move the town to vote to accept the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22H, as printed in the warrant.
Thank you.
What?
Article 28.
I move the town to accept general law, chapter 44, section 53F and 3/4. Do you want me to read the whole thing?
No.
Yes. It's printed in the warrant.
You have to read up to a certain point.
Up to as printed in the warrant.
As printed in the
Okay.
warrant.
Article 29. Selectmen.
I move the town vote to amend the town of Hanson zoning bylaws expressly contingent on an affirmative vote by the town residents at the local town election on November 6th, 2018, by amending Section 6, subsection M, marijuana establishments, as to prohibit marijuana retailers in all districts or take any, whoa. I'm not supposed to
that
say
part of
that,
the
am
motion?
I? Well, I'm reading it from the...
Yeah, we can strike.
By making the following changes thereto as printed in the warrant.
Thank you. Next up is Article 30, Selectmen.
That's a 2/3.
All right, we ready? I move the town vote to set the spending limits of the following revolving accounts in accordance with Hanson General Bylaw, Article 2-9, Section 3, as printed in the warrant.
And, excuse me, but Sean, will you be saying 2/3 vote needed, or do you want Matt to say?
No, I'll
Okay.
take care of it.
All right.
Okay, and the last article is Article 31. Beth.
And the moderator moves out.
And I'll move that.
The moderate, okay. Anybody gonna read it?
No.
Can I make one change to that motion on marijuana?
Yep.
So, but apart from also striking or take any action relative thereto, it just say by making the changes as printed in the warrant, because they're not the following changes,
Oh,
because
okay.
there's nothing to follow.
And the other thing, on that same article, it says, "This section shall be effective only upon passage by the voters at the town election in November."
And have
We
we
already
already
voted
had
that.
election? Yes,
So
strike
that shouldn't be in there.
Yep.
Okay, wait a minute.
But, Mr. Blas,
Get whole new motion. Yeah, that's just the way.
You see that on the last line?
Wes,
Yes.
you should probably, though, in your explanation, talk about the election from last year. That this is just affirming what voters wanted.
As ratified?
As previously voted by
I
the
think we should.
residents.
Already did that.
We can work on that language.
All right, you're gonna write this all over for me anyway. Previously voted.
Oh, it was for West, right, sorry.
Plus an
I forgot.
explanation of what-
That hand is-
We'll work on that.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any more questions on that?
That's why we do this.
Exactly why we do this.
We're doing it Monday night.
That's it.
That's it. So let's go, we'll put back to that. Let's go back to the special. So there's some articles here that we need to recommend.
That would be Article 2, the supplemental budget.
Supplemental budget.
So you're gonna excuse people if they didn't want.
Yeah, if anybody that's, you're more than welcome to leave. If you've already covered you, if you still have some business, you're welcome to stay. Okay, Article 2. Does anybody have any questions on Article 2?
No, the finance committee voted 4-0 to recommend.
I think the only reason that we didn't vote is we didn't have the final numbers. I
Correct.
don't think there was
Right.
any controversy.
No.
No.
Yeah. Okay, so I move, we already placed, I move to recommend, Article 2.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0. Okay, that's the only one on the special. So we'll flip back to the annual. Okay. Article 5, the budget.
Now, we had previous, at the last meeting, we voted to approve it, to recommend it. But I didn't put it on the spreadsheet.
Okay.
I apologize.
Was that a 5-0?
That was a 5-0.
So that was it.
I didn't know if we're gonna be discussing it additionally tonight, or are we good with what we voted last week?
No, we were discussing it because it was
This
blank
is-
on the
Okay.
sheet.
Yeah, is there anybody have any discussion on the budget? Did anything come out of you guys?
We haven't sat down and had that discussion yet. So we left it, the number where we left it at our last meeting, but we haven't met yet tonight. We just started up, came up down here, so we'll probably go after, leave here.
Have to leave here. Okay. So the school's we voted already at 6.5%. Are there gonna be any changes there? The finance is at 6.5%. They haven't met yet. The school committee's meeting tomorrow. Is there any discussion on this?
Where is the school committee at right now?
12.
And
12 and a half? 12 and a half?
And so we don't have anything to respond to because they're at 12 and a half. And I mean, I guess we could respond to 12 and a half, but I think we already have, right? We just were like, we've got 6.5. We can't make up that gap of the 6%.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't know whether the chair of the school committee wished to address that particular question or wanted to wait till tomorrow night's meeting.
Yeah, well, I was hoping the school committee would be able to have a consensus from this committee and the finance committee, obviously going into tomorrow night's meeting, seeing as we made a special meeting before town meeting. I mean, we'll be going to town, I guess, if we don't get some sort of a consensus tomorrow night and the school committee stays at 12 and a half, we'll be doing this on town hall floor. So the budget that you have here will hold every single item.
I guess it's just tricky, Bob, because it's like, like, so we're at 6.5, you're at 12 and a half. It seems like an enormous gap, you know. I know in reality it's a smaller gap that we started off with, so that's positive. But like, I don't know what we should be discussing, because I don't know, you know, Whitman has to come up at the same amount, we've got to come up at the same amount, school committee's we've all got to agree. And I think, you know, what we've been discussing is, you know, I mean, I don't know how far we could push without getting into an override, which of course none of us want to do. You know, I think we've discussed, you know, like FinCom kind of freed up like what, 123 or something with your budget. I've got some questions and a concern about at least one of the items there. But so there's some cash. I mean, Mike, where are we at? Like we're at 6.5 right now. That's what we've been on the record consistently as saying.
Yeah.
How far can we push this with, like how far, what has Todd told you we can push to?
Well, and you've alluded to it, and I don't want to put words in the FinCom's mouth, because what FinCom's recommendation on town meeting floor is going to be on Articles 6 and 7 to forego the supplement that we were going to give from taxation to both the transfer station operation and the recreation department. As it so happens, and it's just coincidence, as it so happens, both of those figures are around $90,000, just north or south in each situation. As it so happens, $90,000 pretty much equates to 1% of an increase to a potential contribution to the school operation. So taking it to its extreme, and again, the FinCom has not voted. Actually, I don't think the FinCom has taken a position on where to put that money they want to pull out of taxation. But taking it to that extreme, if that money is, if those articles pass as the Board of, as the FinCom plans amending them, well, technically, I guess it's not amending because we're acting on your motion. If those two pass as presented, there will be approximately $180,000 in taxation that could be then assigned, given to the school committee to raise that percentage from 6.5% to 8.5%, and that would not necessitate an override.
To interject, sorry, it's 160 right now, so there would still need to be further cuts.
We need to make up about 20,000 some odd.
$20,000
Okay.
would be the amount that we would have to make up to get to 8.5%.
Okay, and just for, we haven't voted on the new FinCom recommendations of for
No.
recreation and transfer station. And the only reason I mentioned it, Mike, is it's frankly, it's in the warrant here, you know, like what the numbers are, it's public knowledge, it's.
Yeah.
If we don't agree with both of those items, maybe we just agree with one. We haven't voted on it, so I don't even know. Is there somewhere else that
No.
we have no free cash?
Well, we've dedicated all free cash to capital. And of course.
We have no additional free cash that we haven't allocated.
So am I right, Kev, then, in thinking that 12.5% would mean we cut another $360,000?
It's 90,000 for every.
90,000 per percent, roughly 90,000 per 1% increase.
So to get to the 12.5, it's.
We have to, and that we will do that night.
Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be done that night. It just has to be done before the budget is certified. The only thing that would happen, correct me if I'm wrong, is that that line would be allocated as is. So if 12.5 went through on that line, we would have to find the remainder from the rest of the budget. It will not be done that night. We can still adjourn, but we would meet after the fact and say, the budget is certified at this bottom line number, the 27 million, and we would have to cherry pick it from all the other departments.
So we'd have to back into it from there.
And the town does not have to vote on that cherry pick.
What's that?
The town does not vote on that cherry pick.
Well, you have to balance the budget before the special, but you would have to have a special in the fall.
But it wouldn't be done at, it wouldn't be done that night.
You couldn't do it at town meeting,
Couldn't
I
do it
mean,
that
that would
night.
be an impossible
It does,
task.
we had this discussion on email and with Todd. It isn't, the budget does not have to be finalized that night. The bottom, basically the bottom line number has to be allocated. So we can't find all these other, and if someone amends one of the lines, that's the amendment. It can't be changed. So if the school was changed, that's the number we have to go with. We can move it from other departments and then it can be certified. But right now, where we're at, if we were to match Whitman's, well, what Whitman is telling us they're going to do, we still need to find, so there needs to be, we're gonna have to go make adjustments and take another $20,000 out of another line that's currently in the budget. That's assuming Articles 6 and 7 remain as we've recommended, as we've presented them.
Now, when you say
The
what.
school number is final, by the way. The
Yeah.
school number is final. You have to balance with your
Right.
town side budget.
When you say Whitman, I assume you mean Whitman FinCom has told you that, because they voted at 8.5.
Right, so, and I don't know the ins and outs of their bylaws, but I believe it's the same as ours, so their FinCom says 8.5, that's what gets presented to the taxpayers.
It is,
It's
they vote on the FinCom.
So they have 8.5, we're at 6.5 right now, we're, prior to this meeting. So the 8.5, if that's what they've settled on, that's what they're gonna vote on Monday night.
Well, that will be presented, it's a
I'm
question.
sorry, that's what will be presented on Monday night.
And whether or not,
Right
again,
now,
at
another meeting.
our meeting, there could be a movement, somebody could get up at the Whitman, and I don't like talking about other towns all that much, but there could be somebody who gets up at the Whitman meeting and moves that figure around as well, and not go with the 8.5%. So that could be, it could be lower, it could be higher.
So I think the process and how, I'm sorry, 1 second. I think the process and how we got here needs to change between the school department, the board of selectmen. It's just, we can't be, a couple hours before town meeting and we still don't have this number.
It's not even so much the school board, it's the other town. It's Whitman's inability to certify a certain number. I mean, they were talking 2.5, 4.5. Now somehow they're at 8.5, which frankly I don't know how they're getting there. But if that's the number they're going with, that's the number we can.
That's the number FinCom. The FinCom. I don't think the selectmen have gone there. Have they
doesn't
gone?
matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, I know.
Sounds like that FinCom is gonna supersede it.
It's the same scenario that we are in. The number that's presented is the number that FinCom.
Yeah, so,
So it's a matter of, we've commented on this every year that we try and start the process early. Our FinCom has been very open and honest with the numbers that we've been plugging in for months now. I think since the very beginning, we've marched along with the same number. So it's tough where we are in a regional agreement to come, when you're waiting on the other town to show their cards.
I think in the best interest of the school, I think that we ought to come up to what Whitman's FinCom is and just pray that the school committee is gonna follow suit. Tomorrow.
And let's play it out. So we come up to, let's say theoretically, because we haven't voted on it, we came up to the 8.5. Their FinCom's at 8.5. We've got to come up with another 20,000 to make that number work. And then the only missing piece, well, there's two missing pieces. It's like a Rubik's Cube.
If we recommended 8.5, if we were to recommend 8.5, we would adjust the rest of the budget to account for that 20.
Okay. And then, like a little Rubik's Cube, the other piece is we've got to have the Whitman Selectmen, well, we've got to have the school committee agree to 8.5.
Correct.
And the Whitman Selectmen agree to 8.5. But obviously, if the Whitman Selectmen agree to 8.5, we agree to 8.5, both of the FinComs agree to 8.5, I would hope in the spirit of cooperation that the schools would see fit to
I agree with you 100%.
go there.
You know, and I hope they would see the willingness of us, you know, trying to
Really,
work with them.
ultimately, the taxpayers. So, you know, Whitman says 8.5, we get to 8.5. And the taxpayers decide, and no one gets up to amend the line, then it stays at 8.5.
Right. That's, we want to try to avoid that.
Numbers that's put forward.
Right.
But school.
And then, after this, we need to figure out a better way, this process, we gotta figure out a better way.
It just
I
seems
tried
so,
to do it
no, it
since
does,
I
it
was
just
in
seems so, like, it seems so painful.
Never can get it down, no matter what.
Well, it's, as the chairman of the FinCom points out, the variable in this, and I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but the variable in this is that we are in this together with another community. And in all honesty, I think that we've had conversations with the school committee going back months in terms of talking things through. So it's been an open line of communication up until this point. The problem again is that we've got to go in to the degree that we can at a number that is the same, high, low, or indifferent with the other community. And the other community is in, we all understand, in a really bad situation right now, and they're having troubles getting to whatever percentage that they think they'd like to try to get to.
Again,
So I don't think anything really could have changed much in terms of where we are right now, in terms of what I believe this town tried to do in cooperation with the school committee and the administration.
We've told both Whitman Finance Committee and the school committee, our number, 6.5. It's been that for months. So, you know, it's tough to come to a consensus when we keep saying the same number, and, you know, the other town has to do what they have to do, but our number's been very consistent from the very beginning.
Okay, but you guys are meeting after we are.
Okay, so unfortunately, the budget's inextricable. Every little item is linked to another item, so it's a domino effect, right? And one of the things that we had kind of started to discuss was the recommendation that FinCom had made well, maybe you guys can explain a little bit better on the transfer station and recreation, what you had proposed and where you're at. And
so what we looked at for both recreation and the transfer station was that there's a significant decline in revenue on both sides. Significant. So much so that we are sending, you know, $75,000 in the special just to prop up recreation through the end of the year. So what we decided was every year we have kicked the can down the road with both of these, both recreation and solid waste. We've kicked the can down the road. We've supplemented. We worked last season with the health agent, Matt. He came down. The intent of, we'll say, the transfer station was always to be a self-sustaining enterprise. Always. That's the way it was sold. We have weaned down the amount of taxation. This year, all of a sudden, taxation went up. And so we said, no, we need to take a look at this, because if the tax burden is going to continue to increase on the entire citizenry of Hanson, when no one's been able to provide, you know, what our usage is, what percentage of the town actually uses it, is it being open as many days as it is now economically viable? I would say no. If it's losing money, we need to do something. And the only way you can do that is by turning down on the revenue that you give it, that you provide to operate it. So they'll have to make some hard decisions. Luckily, we have October town meeting again to take a look at this. So this will provide us with more than enough. The money we've set aside in the budget for this is more than enough to run it until October. More than enough.
And you feel the same way for recreation?
Yes. So we erred on the side of caution on recreation because our intent was not to disrupt anyone who may have an event, a wedding, a graduation, a birthday. You know, summertime is the big time for Camp Kawani, for the Cove, so we didn't want to affect it as much, so we left it a little more, in a little bit better position where it's actually could operate probably for 9 months without a hard look. But this is our opinion is that both the transfer station and the Camp Kawani Cranberry Cove are used by a smaller percentage of the population. So why are we going to continue to increase the amount from taxation that goes to these until we take a hard look, as a group, not just the finance committee, not just the recreation department, not just the selectmen, but now is the time over the next 6 months to sit down and take a hard look at why are these losing as much money as they are, and do we want to continue to invest in these enterprises? You will never be able to tell me that we should increase taxation on the transfer station, because I drive down the street every morning, and what do you see out at the curb? See, how many curbside pickups do you see? There's a lot. There's a significant percentage of our population that already uses curbside pickup out of their own pocket. So why are we continuing to fund it with increased taxation on those same people? I have curbside pickup. Now you're going to say you're going to increase, everyone who has curbside pickup taxes or the money out of taxation to support something that we don't use. So it's something to take a look at, because it's not an essential. It's not. We looked at it as it's an essential, non-essential service.
We acknowledge what you're saying, but of course I would reject the argument if I don't use it, I shouldn't have to pay for it. That's part of being in a commonwealth. That's part of being in a town. But that aside, I think that my concern, and I recognize where you guys are coming from in that those are definitely areas that need to be looked at. We all know that. And we've talked about, as soon as we get a life after town meeting, can actually start getting down about the business of running the town. Those are some of the things that we want to work with the Board of Health on, and we've already talked to Arlene about that. And we know that we've got a very dedicated group of people at Camp Kawani. My concern is always when we're dealing with, I hear what you're saying. You guys are looking at the financial aspect, as well you should. And this is that natural friction and this is why you guys are doing what you do, we do what we do, and, we'll work it out, something out in between. But my concern is we've got, on both camps, extremely dedicated volunteers who are killing themselves to try to make these things work. And I don't want this to come across as a vote of no confidence from our board that, we're going to cut you off. But what you're saying is we've got enough to get you through October. This is our way of lighting a little bit of a fire and saying we can't really kick it into next year. We got to really make this a priority and have the conversation this year. But you've got enough to get you through.
Right.
Okay.
So I agree exactly what Laura just said.
We do this every year. We get into this post-town meeting lull where the summer comes, everything is good, and then the next thing you know, we're at October town meeting, we still haven't done anything. So this is more than enough to say, we are in favor, we don't want to get rid of these enterprises, but it's time to take a hard financial look.
It's going to force us to look at them.
Yes.
Well, one other point, Mr. Chairman, is that we also look at the fact that where they've been, as a enterprise fund, you are ultimately a self-sustaining business unit. And if the losses that sole business unit continues, that eats away at the remaining equity. In Recreation's case, that equity is funding the loan payments for the septic system. And based on some of the numbers that we've looked at, one of our bigger concerns, and this also goes to solid waste, is the erosion of the equity or retained earnings is going to run out, be it in fiscal 20 or in fiscal 21. And quite frankly, I'm going off the top of my head, so I may be off a little bit. In terms of recreation, that retained earnings balance is approximately $78,000 where we stand today. 53 of it is going to support debt service for this coming fiscal year. If losses continue, you have about $20-something thousand to remain, which would be less than half a year's worth of loan payments on that. And what you would end up with would be an insolvent enterprise fund that wouldn't be able to make payment on its debt. These are the concerns of why we're saying we need to address these things now. And it's not that it's, to use your phrase, a vote of no confidence against the operation. It's, as any business in town, it's that if this is the revenue you're generating and you don't have the ability to continue to support those losses and fund debt obligations, something's got to give in the middle.
And so what our intent will be, and we've discussed this with Todd, is in October, we will submit motions to close both enterprise funds, both solid waste and recreation, and roll them directly into the general fund. So that any money generated by those enterprises, both of them, will go directly into the general fund. So then if it is decided through the town that they want to support it by taxation, taxation comes out of the general fund, revenue goes into the general fund, and not into this, we put this money away, and then it can only be used for that. So if these are truly money-making enterprises that are benefit the town, it should go to the general fund. So we're looking at simplifying the financial accounting in the town overall, and this will be part of what Mike discussed as far as, these are not, the water department is a self-sustaining enterprise. They make more than they spend.
Yeah.
They build up their accounts, they use it for projects. That is the intent of the funds. These two enterprises are not self-sustaining. They rely on taxation. They are out of retained earnings, and it's time to.
But they were.
Yeah. But for the last, if you look over the last few years, there's a steady downward decline on both. Now, how we came to this point, can be argued either way, and we can't stick to the way we did it because this is the way it's always been done. We're not saying we're not getting rid of either of them, but we're saying they need to be brought back into the fold of the town, and it needs to be something that there's more, that the accounting makes sense.
I think there's more, what you're proposing is more transparency.
Yes.
And more of a conscious decision on an ongoing basis rather than it's sort of getting embedded in how we usually do things. And I totally appreciate where you guys are coming from. I think you'd also acknowledge, however, that both of those groups have had mitigating circumstances, the recycling nightmare that has hit, and then the new guys at Recreation and like the septic and all the stuff that they've had. And I know there may always be mitigating circumstances, but I recognize where you're coming from, and I really appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to explain where you're coming from. It's not punitive. It's not meant to hurt anybody. It's meant to increase the pressure on having that conversation.
I want to give Eileen a minute.
I just wanted to point out two things. The amount is only increased by $10 that we're asking for from last fiscal year. And if you look at this, the revenue receipts that we have now are higher than last year. So that's printed right here on the warrant. So at this point, we've taken in more money. That was all I was saying.
All right, so this, we're not gonna.
Okay, so
we're not gonna go down that road right
no.
now.
So
his explanation. I want to get back to the schools.
Yes.
Okay, before.
Can we imagine where the other 20,000 might come from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman will find it.
If the board decides to move in that direction, Finance Committee and our office will sit and we will make it work.
If we decide to move to that number,
if we decide to move,
we will move the budget accordingly.
Right.
So we will not leave tonight with adjusting the number 2% without finding the 20,000. It'll have to be moved out of another department, but there are, we will do it so as to not.
So
least effect on.
I think we had enough discussion. I'm looking for someone to make a motion to increase the 6.5 to 8.5 for the school budget.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. I think we discussed this enough. And I thank you guys. And hopefully, like you said, Laura, that the school committee is gonna, step up and follow suit and see what we did here.
Yep.
All right?
This was a good dialogue. I appreciate it.
All those in favor? 5-0. Okay, thank you.
Again, can we just reiterate that we appreciate the work that the two.
Yeah, I appreciate that explanation. That was, because for some reason, I was right on the same page as her. I'm like, recreation, come on, man, you can't go there. These guys, you know? So I really appreciate that explanation. Okay, so,
Mr. Chair.
yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Hayes, yes, how can I forget
Can I
you?
be heard?
Yes, you can be heard.
Thank you.
Unless it's to ask for more money. Just wanted to have.
It's definitely the actual. I'm actually talking with Whitman now, but you mentioned how we could streamline this and we have to stop doing this. Well, part of the problem is, looking at the process, the superintendent of schools comes to the school committee with a level service budget at 15.1% assessment, not increase in the budget. People get very confused with that.
Yes.
The assessment, if the increase in the budget was 15.1%, we'd never be back here for asking for any more. So consequently, it's assessed to the two towns. That's where the school committee starts. It's a level service budget, which means it's exactly the same as it was last year. It's not adding, subtracting, it's exactly the same to provide the same exact services. Now, it seems, you know, as we go along every year, we seem to be getting pushed to the last of this, the last of that. It's always the last because we're the biggest dollar amount. But one of the biggest assets in the town are the schools. If you don't educate them, you better put more policemen on or more opioid overdoses. You better put all kinds of more things. So the important part about this is education is critical. Public education is something the state 100% supports. And if you don't support public education, you've got issues. Okay, so the committee has got a lot of figures from both towns. But one of the problems is that I see is the town of Hanson shouldn't worry about what the town of Whitman does. The town of Whitman shouldn't worry about what the town of Hanson does. The town of Hanson should give the best shot they can to the school department, period, with what we ask. And then if Whitman can't come up to it, let us have a super town meeting, or let the override begin, but you've got to give it a shot. Part of the problem is, well, we got to be balanced. We got to do this. What's Whitman doing? I'm doing it on the phone right now. In fact, they want 8.5% and want to keep non-mandated busing. All about the final vote. Let me know. We're doing this back and forth a week before town meeting.
Right.
That's the problem.
I think we
And
didn't
I know
want
it's
to
a
put
big
Whitman
number.
in a
I'm not
weird.
blaming anyone, Laura. I'm not blaming
No,
anyone.
no, we didn't want to put Whitman in a worse position than they already were. And we also didn't want to ask for an override if they weren't going to, you know. So it's. But I hear what you're saying, and
We
I
don't
think
either.
I think it might behoove us to do a post-mortem after this. And I know everybody's done the best, and you're right, Bob. That's some of the rationale and some of what Mike said. I know Mike's been working it. I mean, he's been working it like crazy.
It's been unbelievable.
Yeah.
We've been going back and forth trying to get this done for months. And it's as difficult for him as it is for us. The problem I have is going into a school committee meeting tomorrow night with a school committee that's at 12% and saying, we have no issue. We really don't know what Hanson Finance is going to do. We don't know what Selectmen's going to do. They're at 6.5. This one's at 8.5. They're at 4 or whatever. Town meeting floor will be where the problems will arise. And we all want to be settled. I want it settled as much as the rest of the school department does and every other town. Jerry has a budget. The Chief Mix has a budget. Mr. Hanlon has a budget. They want to know where we're going to be. It's up to us to lead them that way. All of these guys, nobody wants to be up in the air with a giant question mark. Sean's looking at me. He doesn't want to hear what I'm going to do on town hall floor if we don't get it.
I always love to hear from you. The only thing I would add is that, you know, I'm not sure anybody wants to see a super town meeting.
Right. That's what we're trying to avoid.
I think of the super town meeting as more of a threat to force people to come to agreement.
Oh, I don't want to see it either.
Yeah,
I want to see an agreement.
I can't even imagine how such a thing would take place.
Oh, it wouldn't be fun.
No. So, you know, I just don't want to see us say, well, that's the backstop. I think it's the last.
Yeah, I don't want to see it.
Just wrap up your point here, because I have a lot of business to get
I
done.
understand. The point is, I agree with Laura. Let's have a post-mortem meeting after this, but the town should be looking at giving their best shot that they can to the school department. We're laying off 19 employees at 8.5. If you move it to 6.5, Just do every 2-year layoff, you gotta lay off a third one to pay the unemployment. This is real figures, these are real numbers, this isn't a fantasy game, these are people's jobs. I mean, when people call the school and they wanna use a school building, or they wanna use a field, good luck, because there's nobody to assign it, and who's mowing the grass? I'm sure that Mr. Hanlon's got his hands full, we have 1 million square feet of fields to mow. Who's gonna mow it with nobody to run the lawnmower? I mean, these things have to be taken into consideration. It's what the school district does is a tremendous amount of other things for the town that's not just education. I mean, we were all in this together. I mean, Parks and Fields got a $15,000 budget. You're gonna get 100 phone calls at McQuon if nobody mows it. Who's gonna mow it? Dave, you gonna mow it?
Nope, not at this point.
And that's what I'm saying. If we lay off more than that, you know,
Mr.
we're in
Hayes,
trouble.
thank
And
you.
I'm just being honest.
Appreciate it.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Okay, okay, we already did the recreation. So next, capital improvement.
Oh, yeah, they did.
Article 9.
Yeah, Article 9.
The matrix should be in your notebooks.
Right.
Is capital improvement gonna make a pitch at all here? Are they meeting? Yeah, I don't see anybody here.
No. Do we want to recommend this? You voted not to recommend
Did
it.
you have the matrix at the time?
We have
What was your rationale?
the 5 million allocated this year for the highway barn.
The underlying budget is almost $11 million of capital in fiscal '20 that we, as a committee, don't understand how we're going to be able to fund that. As we're talking about all the budgetary issues that we just spent half hour talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the matrix shows what the requests were. And the capital improvement committee gives us what they can actually afford to do for this year.
Right.
So that's where the matrix is one thing, outlines what's going on. The articles actually show what they know we can afford to fund.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
do you
good.
have any further questions for us related to the budget, because we're going to head up to our meeting?
Hold on one second.
Any other,
Hold on 1 second. I do not have any more questions for you guys.
anyone else?
You guys?
No, but thank you so
Kevin, I
much.
just want to
thank
make
you.
sure that it's $5 million that we don't have.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't recommend
Want them to stick around for 23?
All right.
But it's my recollection, we've carried that every year, it
Stick
just
around for
isn't
23
funded.
to test.
It's just on the matrix, so I don't
Do
think
we
there's
need to-
any,
You're a little bit more.
I don't think there's any thought whatsoever that we're gonna fund
Oh, hold on a
this at
second.
town meeting.
Okay.
It just carried forward part of the matrix.
Again, this seems to be what the capital improvement committee does. They carry
It's just
forward
totally true. You're a little bit more polished on that article.
steward of the town.
We're fine, well, because it's
Can't honestly
just,
say I think
it's
it's
just
$5
us
million.
talking
Because I can
about
switch-
it. Mike can kind of pitch
Good
it.
enough. Thank you.
All right?
Thank you.
Are we in a break?
Yeah.
Kev, let me know.
I'll let you.
No.
Kevin,
I can, if we keep
Well,
going.
I can't speak to all of
oh, so you're
that.
gonna leave him there?
Can we
You
just
are
leave
home?
Jeffrey before they leave?
Yeah, let's see.
Kevin, sorry, Mike.
You guys, before
Do you
you
mind
go,
sticking around?
we
We
want
wanna
to
talk
just
about
jump to
23.
23, just real quickly. That's the TIF article?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna skip the capital improvement?
Yeah, we're gonna go right back to capital improvement.
Because they want to get to their meeting, so
Okay.
we're trying to. All right, Mike, did you want to cue it up?
Article 23 on the annual, the TIF area.
Yep, so we voted to recommend.
You voted to
We
recommend.
did. Our recommendations are, I think they're in the column there, right?
Yeah, it says they recommend.
Yeah, we voted to recommend. So we voted on all of the articles. Those are our recommendations. We are gonna have to go back and change those regarding 6 and 7.
Okay.
Obviously, because right now it says not to recommend, but that was based on the original request from taxation, the dollar amount requested from taxation.
Okay.
Mary informed me after the fact that we could adjust the number in the article itself. So I will be making a motion to reopen Articles 6 and 7 for revote.
Okay.
Those two.
Do you have any more questions for
Well, yes, Mike is, our
Mike?
Mike, can you queue up?
Yeah.
this? Okay, and then.
The TIF committee, after meeting on a number of occasions and doing an awful lot of hard work and speaking with the proponent, the property owner that has requested the TIF, and Kate can chime in at some point to explain this as well if the board has further questions. But basically, what the TIF committee is recommending that the Board of Selectmen recommend to town meeting is a tax incremental financing plan that would see a 100% discount on the new value of the building that is being redeveloped over the course of 10 years, graduating down to by 10% to eventually in the 10th year is 0%. Basically, what the company has agreed to do is bring on 9 new employees, so we're looking at economic development. We're looking at foregoing, sort of deferring revenue from the increase in the value to the building. The town will not be giving up anything in terms of what the building is worth right now. It's just deferring, capturing that new value going forward to give this particular project some breathing room to get up and running.
Right, so just to kind of reiterate what I think the key point is, it's a deferment of taxes
Yes.
on the improved building.
Yes.
So we're not in any event losing money.
Yes.
We're not failing to get the same taxes that we're getting now. What we're doing is we're deferring the new additional taxes we would be able to get as a means of incentivizing these guys to stay and build and employ people in Hanson.
As well as, I believe, sending a message forward to any other potential developers, not only in that location.
Is there any way we can get heard on this, Mike?
I don't believe so. We have the opportunity, should the individual or plural individuals who are signing the contract with the agreement with the town of Hanson, should they fail to live up to their obligations, the town of Hanson can petition the state to renege, to remove this particular agreement, and it's done and over with.
And I think it's particularly important to acknowledge that there is a state component to this, and the state is really going to be playing a much more active role in overseeing this than we are. In addition, we've obviously had town council actively engaged in drafting the agreement and reviewing it. So, but I think Ms. Sloan has something.
Yeah, I'd like to know where the agreement is. It says that I have it on file with me. I do not.
We put it in there when you came in here.
I snuck it under your door.
They just agreed to it this evening, so it was not in existence until
You
this
will
evening.
have it by, how about this, tomorrow?
Okay,
That
so
sounds great.
I'm looking for a motion to recommend Article
moved.
22.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0.
Thank you guys for
Okay,
staying.
thanks, guys.
Sorry.
Appreciate it.
I didn't know if you'd have questions for FinCom.
Yeah, no, that's good, because he's not too well off on that. All right, we're gonna hop back to capital improvement makers. So we're gonna hop back to
Article
Article 9. I'm looking for a motion to recommend Article 9.
So,
I had
yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I had a quick question,
Good.
Mr. Chair. So under fiscal year 2020, we talked about this in the past, about the resurface of the outdoor track. Now, is that, it says $225,000. At first, I thought it was $90,000 for the town of Hanson. Is that? I just was wondering.
That's what the cost is to do the project. What we have in our warrant articles is just Hanson's share of
Okay.
it.
All right, so.
There had always been an interest in carrying forward the actual full
Okay,
cost.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, so that the town had an understanding of what the actual full cost is, but that we had, basically are only funding 40% of it.
Okay. So, yeah.
Does anybody else have any more questions?
No, again, we're not voting on the entire matrix, we're voting on the recommendations, right?
Well, the article that we're working on right now is to accept the matrix.
Well,
And then you fund what is accepted going in, I believe, the next article.
okay, but,
So
but I agree with FinCom. I don't accept this matrix. I think that there's things in here that, like the $5 million for highway, I don't.
Well, again, I see that as a placeholder, and that Article 10 is the actual, the action recommended by.
But you're asking us to vote on this, though.
Yeah, to recommend basically, it's a capital plan going forward.
Right, but I don't agree with some of the
Well,
stuff in the
then don't
capital
vote for
plan,
it.
right?
I'm not trying to be glib, but yeah, if you're
Okay,
uncomfortable with it, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to recommend Article 9. No one wants a motion?
I'll make a motion not to recommend.
Can we refer it to town meeting?
Yeah, you have a meeting beforehand. I mean, maybe you can get some more explanation.
No,
from
I mean, can we
capital.
literally not
Just-
vote on it
right,
and
you
refer it to
can
town
move to-
meeting?
Yeah.
Refer to town meeting.
Refer to town meeting. That's what I,
Do you need a vote on that?
Yeah, yeah, that's what your recommendation will be. You recommend to refer to town meeting.
okay, that's my motion.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? 5-0. Okay, Article 10, capital improvement.
I move to.
No, we already recommended that. Sorry.
Article, oh, okay.
I'm looking at my notes wrong. Article 11, the school committee. 311, 385. Looking for a motion to
Okay,
recommend.
so the amount on that isn't the 385, that's my bad, I apologize. That was the total amount of all the articles.
Okay.
The town accountant has spoken to the finance director and said that the ones they need the most are recommended actually on the spreadsheet. So you'll see that when you look at the article,
Passover.
some say pass over and the other ones say recommend by the town administrator and it's free cash. So the
Okay.
total amount for that is $210,945.
Give me that number again, 200?
It's in the thing.
Yeah, I don't have the thing.
Oh,
210,945.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so based on that,
Down the bottom, down the very bottom is the
that's
total.
from free cash, right?
Oh, you don't?
Yes, they're all from free cash.
You on the right
The ones
page?
that are
You're on the right
recommended
page.
Say they are.
So with that monetary adjustment, I'm
so
looking,
late.
I'm looking for a motion to
I move to
approve
recommend.
Article 11.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0.
No, I'm
Okay.
against.
Okay, so, 4-1.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm voting against, yeah.
Okay. 4-1-0. Okay.
You're 4-1-0, did you
I'm
abstain?
against.
You're
Sorry.
against, okay,
Yeah.
so it's 4-1.
Okay, next is Article 16, Stabilization Fund. Looking for a motion to recommend.
So moved. But can I, Matt, is that because of the resurfacing thing?
Yep.
Okay. No, you don't have to tell me, I was just curious.
That's it.
Have to re-answer you?
But no pressure, you don't have to answer me, but.
She says that after we get to the answer, Article 16, Stabilization. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, you motioned, you can't second.
Oh,
We'll take Mr.
I
Blas.
wasn't sure if you had taken my motion or not.
All those in favor? 5-0. Good.
It would be so much easier if I could move and second things.
Okay, Article 17, which is School Stabilization Fund.
No, that's at 40.
$40,000.
As of right now, again, these numbers are subject to change based on whatever
Right.
happens with the
Yeah.
budget and the capital items.
Yeah, with, particularly with Article 11, as we discussed before.
Move to recommend.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0. Okay. All right, next, Article 21, Highway Department, Stormwater Management.
I move that the town votes to transfer the sum of $50,000 from free cash to stormwater management services and related items.
Okay, thank you, David.
Why did we hold that one?
I held it because we haven't recommended it. I just figured it'd just be easier just to read it and recommend it.
And the reason you haven't voted on it before is I just wanted to double check the figures.
Okay.
I spoke with Dave, and I spoke with the people on the highway, and I also spoke with our town planner, who will also be intimately involved in what the town is required to do, given the new MS4, right? Or,
Yeah.
MS4 license. And everyone is in agreement that this is a good estimate.
This is
as to
something
what we
Highway's
need-
been working on
we
for a
need to-
long
we need to
time.
They're
spend.
required
And
to
they
do
finally,
this anyway, to
yes,
comply,
and they
yeah.
finally just got their permit, and they have a limited amount of time, so this has to be done.
All right, I move to recommend
Second.
Article 21.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0 on Article 21. Article 22, accept the additional, or actually, you know what? Why don't I read the actual article? How about that?
And they already voted the two.
Article 22, I move the town vote to confirm and approve of a Article 17 of May 4th, 2015 special town meeting and to accept the donation of land and buildings located at 100 Hawks Ave as depicted as Lot 1 on a plan entitled Plan of Land Hawks Ave in Hanson, Mass, October 24th, 2018, prepared for GEI Consultants, 400 Unicorn Park, Woburn, by the Land Planning, Main Street, Hanson, job number 2992, on file with the clerk's office, containing 9.52 acres, more or less, according to said plan, said property to be used for general municipal purposes. All right, so this is the light control property that, that
This
we're
is the big
looking-
email we received today, Kate's
Correct.
response.
Right.
Yes.
Yep. So, so we have not recommended this, so I'm looking for a motion to recommend Article 22. I don't get a motion?
Wow. So moved.
Okay, so I'd like to make a few comments about this. I absolutely recognize that the highway guys need a new building. They're in somewhat subhuman conditions. And I recognize that they do an amazing job. But I look at this as two separate things. One is the question of, does highway need a new building? Yes, I say yes, they do. The other question, the question that's before us, is the acceptance of this piece of property, which is a piece of property that was owned by Light Control, which then was purchased by, Light Control was purchased by Hubble, and was subject to all kinds of cleanup that was overseen by the DEP, and they've complied with all of that. And they've done that by testing the site in various places, not everywhere, in the place that we're being asked to take, and not under the buildings that are on the property. And that concerns me because we're proposing putting our employees in what was formerly a rather hazardous site. And they've gotten I don't want to call it a clean bill of health, but they've reached an agreement with the DEP that it's been cleaned up to a degree that's sufficient enough for the DEP. But one of the things I had talked to Kate last week, and I asked her, are we restricted in what that piece of property could be used for? Because when I look at something like this, I'm thinking, is this good for Hanson? And why is this good for Hanson? The whole town, not just a couple of people, but the whole town. Like, is this good? Is this more of a liability or more of a benefit when I'm looking at it? And in my mind, it is more of a liability, and it is more of a liability for the following reasons. Kate's research, you know, and part of the agreement in the deed would be that if we take this deed, Hubble and Light Control go away. They've got no responsibility after we enter into this agreement. So that's the first thing. So then you say, well, maybe we could be eligible for Superfund cleanups if something was found after we take it. Maybe we'd be eligible, but we would not be eligible because under the guidance for at least the major Superfund stuff, if you've got prior knowledge that the property that you're acquiring has got contamination, you really, you've got knowledge, so you can't come in and say, I was innocent, I didn't know that this piece of property was contaminated. We're going in knowing that there was contamination, it was cleaned up, again, to the degree that the DEP feels comfortable with it. So we've got all of that, and my thing is, like, where we're at now is this is like 9.5 acres with 2 buildings on it. There's been some talk, and the primary focus has been maybe putting highway in there. And if I knew 100% with 100% degree of certainty that the town was going to vote to move to pay to fund for highway to go into those buildings, then I'd probably say, okay, you know what? It is, contaminated. It can't be used for anything else. Like, it can't be used for school, playground, yada yada. There's all kinds of stuff. We can't have wells there. But really, none of that would really apply if we put the highway guys there. That's a permitted use. I would say, okay, fine. We can do that because I know that the town's going to fund it, and we won't be stuck with this property in these 2 hulking, aging buildings that are rapidly deteriorating every day that they're not being, that they're not, nobody's in them. But I don't know that people are going to vote that, and we don't just have the cost of moving highway to that building. We've got the cost of tearing down the old building and cleaning up the site that they're on now, and we don't really even know what those costs are. In fact, we don't really know the total cost of any of this. So we're being asked to make a decision to take on these 9.5 acres of formerly contaminated and cleaned up to DEP standard property that's contiguous to extremely sensitive conservation property, Burridge, which is contiguous to all kinds of extremely important water resources, with the off chance that we might get the funding by town meeting to put these highway guys in a building that I'm not really even sure we should be putting highway guys in. And so that's my long-winded way of saying that is why I just can't, I have grappled with this. I cannot even tell you, and because I've talked to you a million times about this, because, my conscience will not allow me to say yes to this. I can't do it. I feel like it's a liability for the town. I feel like it's a potential danger for the people we're putting there. And at the end of the day, I do not want to be known as a member of the Board of Selectmen that took on an Erin Brockovich type property. I don't want that legacy. That's just where I'm coming from. That's just me.
Anybody else want to respond?
Mr. Chair, if I read correctly in the document supporting this topic, it said we couldn't put residential there. And my thought is, why didn't this corporation that makes money, why are they just giving us 9.5 acres and whatnot? And why didn't they try to make money off of it as a corporation? But I guess my big question is, having conservation here, and I don't know if Phil feels comfortable or not stepping out into the spotlight, but what has Phil's interaction has been with those scientists and DEP and working out there, and what their recommendation would be to the Board of Selectmen.
I do have some comments on that. I also have a question which may look at council. I think this calls for having information as opposed to wondering. I think it calls for using the information to minimize fears, but also we do need to take precautions. I mean, it's hard to find anything 100% in this world. As far as conservation's role, since before they began to clean it up, we've been working with them. We've had multiple site visits. We've had our outside consultant to the commission walk the site. We've had discussions with the wetland scientists who were taking the samples, doing the work, mitigating the issues. We've received most recently a report that's probably an inch thick of many data points of what they check and what will continue to be monitored. We also have the benefit of some historical knowledge of the site that the portion which required cleanup is the portion which was cleaned up. not every square inch of that site was actually ever developed. The two buildings that are there now are the newest buildings, were put there most recently, and were built only 20 to 25 years after the EPA came into existence and hazardous waste was recognized as something that needed to be managed properly. So, having said all that, my own level of confidence in the 9.5 acres being offered, that that's sufficiently clean for municipal purposes, is extremely high. I have high confidence in that. Do I know for sure? Of course not. But I'm highly confident that's fine. The other, if my math is right, 70 minus 9, the other 61 acres where monitoring is still ongoing, of which there's like 10 or 12 monitoring wells there and so on. That's a question for Mass Wildlife to ask themselves. Whether they would wish to accept the balance, which has been the stated plan for like the last 3 years that this has been worked on. My question, though, which relates to taking precautions, is would the terms of the agreement that conveyed this to the town in any way indemnify Hubble/Light Control against liability for anything should it be found?
Yes.
I would hope it would not.
No, it does.
I'm asking because
yeah.
I want to know.
Kate speak to this, please.
So, with the deed as drawn and as presented to us by Hubble, we assume the property as is. And so I would reiterate what you said relative to the DEP cleanup, because it was over the course of several years. The broad range of contaminants had been tested for. They tested in multiple areas, and they came back essentially giving a clean bill of health where there's no petroleum, there's no heavy metals, all of these things. They've given it a clean bill of health for commercial purposes, municipal purposes. The only restrictions that are put on the property are where there's heightened concern, or it's a really prophylactic measure to be super conservative, is to say no residential. You can't build any wells, because with the wells you don't want to draw water from other sources apart from what's isolated on the site. Now, in terms of the balance of the property for Mass Fish and Wildlife, I've also spoken with the engineer for light control, and he's indicated to me that they're nearly getting a PPS on that site as well, in that they only have 2 remaining metals that are going to be, that are still showing positive tests for in that location, and they have a solution, a possible solution to make those metals, somehow you insert another type of substance which makes them inert, I think is the right word. And so they're almost fully cleaned up on both sites, as a matter of sheer fact. But yes, with this deed, we are taking the property without getting indemnification from light control in the future.
In other words, we would be, in whatever the percentage or a small percentage would be of a problem, then we would own that problem. I would say part of the reason I said I have high confidence in this part is the flow of groundwater on the surface and subsurface. Notice the hydrology of the site. Gravity determines that, it always has and always will. And this section of the site is higher than the portion which was more heavily developed in the past, where excavations happened, etc.
Right.
The plume, whether it's accelerated by any means, is moving and would continue to move downhill, away from the portion that's being considered given to the town. The idea of minimizing risk, I think it's been done, and the right people have been watching, the right agencies, the right individuals, a large number of organizations. A lot of transparency has been going on in this. They didn't deny they had a problem. They confessed and they addressed it. I worked for a billion-dollar-plus global biotech company for 25 years, and I was the environmental manager, and we acquired a lot of property around the globe. Sometimes we said no thank you. Businesses that existed or open land or something. This was always one of the concerns. So believe me when I tell you, I've been very interested in this particular project. Plus, I've lived in this town all my life. I know what they used to do down there. They've been looking at the right things. They've generated a lot of data which has been scrutinized, quality controlled, quality assurance of the data. DEP is the right agency to look at it. For the purposes that we would ever conceivably be using it, this portion of it, which is, again, upslope from the real problem areas, my confidence is high that it would be fine. I think that the rest of it, and whatever they work out with the state, whether the state considers it fine because they have the low end of the hill, if you will, remains to be seen what they do. I think, from informal discussion, I think the state is concerned not to take on expense for monitoring that might need to be continued for 10 years, whatever it is, 15, because the agency, Department of Fish and Game, is not large. It's not it's not a rich agency, but that's not a discussion for us in this room. It's for them, and I think we're being offered the clean side of the hill.
Yeah, that's true.
So to
It's
speak.
purposely carved out the 9 acres to be wholly upland, and that was intentional when they were drawing what would be the new property lines, for sure. And I wanted to comment on one thing Matt had said relative to a business just giving it to us for free, and why aren't they soliciting? Well, as a matter of sheer fact, I spoke with the engineer, I think it was as recently as Friday, and this company has been approached by several businesses, not to disclose what they are, what they're doing, or anything like that, but Light Control's response was, well, we've already been working with the town, so we're going to see where that goes at this town meeting, and see what comes of the town meeting, because we are keeping our word essentially, but they have been approached by certain businesses. I'll leave it at that.
Did you have any more questions?
Well, just one train of thought.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and this is just learning that information, that there's prospective businesses. Do we really want to take up land where another business may come in and provide tax revenue? We have plenty of land here in the town of Hanson where we could probably find another spot for highway.
The difference matters. You got 2 existing buildings that are already there.
And we're going to spend another $5 million on a new building too.
You're going to spend a lot more than that. Hold on 1 second. Let Mr. Hanlon speak first.
All right, so Mr. Nye asked the question, why didn't this go to a business? At the time when Light Control Hubble was attempting to sell the property, there was 36 buildings on the property and it wasn't cleaned up. They went in to remove it, remove the buildings. At the time that happened, the previous town administrator had a report done where they analyzed all the town buildings in town. The highway department building on Indian Head Street was deemed an unhealthy building. Unhealthy, unsafe, and beyond economical repair, I believe was the quote in the report. At that same time, they were going in to demolish those buildings, and I believe it was the fire chief was up there inspecting it before it was demolished, and he said, wow, these are nice buildings. So they said, do you know anybody who wants them? I said, well, yeah, the highway department actually needs a new building. Back in May of 2015, we went to town meeting. The town voted to accept the property and the 2 buildings, 3.5 acres or whatever. Voted to accept it all, knowing it was all going to be cleaned up and everything was good. What's happened since then is, once we started looking into it, we determined that a little more property would be nice. They shaved off another section of property to give us a total of almost 10 acres, 9.7 acres or whatever it is. All we're doing is, the town already voted to accept the buildings, the buildings and the property. We're voting now to accept more property that they're gifting the town. Now, you say there are buildings up there that need repair. Yeah, that's true. If it costs $5 million to repair those buildings, it costs $5 million. Find a piece of property, build those buildings, do the site work, and build those buildings from the ground up. And what is your price? A lot higher than $5 million.
It's not just a price tag, though, but to your point, yes, it did pass in 2015 when the representation was made at town meeting by the Board of Selectmen who were putting it up, that it would cost $1.5 million. That was a whole presentation, dog and pony show that was done, that it was going to be $1.5 million. So it was a misleading presentation. People voted for it. And I don't dispute, Dave, that, you know, no, I don't know a person in the town, well, I'm sure there is somebody, there's always somebody, but that would say that the highway guys don't need a new building.
Well, there's one yesterday.
You know, there's always somebody, but that, to me, like, and I know that this has become, everybody's talking about it as the highway, and I get that, and I get that it presents an opportunity, but I just can't get over the hurdle of the exposure to the town, you know, the liability to the town. And that's where I'm coming from, 100%.
And you know what, I agree. Except you get all kinds of engineers, the DEP, the engineers from the company, the Army Corps engineers, to all approve a piece of property. How much more approval do we need? Do you know what I'm saying?
I do, you know.
But let's take this the other way. Moquan School is, I believe, 17 acres of property. Tear the building down, build a new facility for the highway department there. It's town property already, we're good. How much is that gonna cost? And 1.5 or 5 million is way shy of what's gonna be needed. So I'm just saying that at this point, the highway department has equipment that sits outside. The biggest investment this town has, the biggest capital asset this town has, is the roads. The roads in this town are worth more than all the buildings put together. You have the roads. There's only so many people working on the department. That's a discussion for another day. For the equipment that we have, we've attempted to modernize the department in the last 10 years. We're getting more and more equipment. The equipment we have does not fit in the buildings that we currently have. There's no room to expand. We could eliminate the 3 ball fields next door because, and believe me, people at home, I'm not suggesting that, but that is highway department property if you look on the assessors map. So we have the property right there. Build a new facility there.
Again, it's really two. It's two different. Like the question before us is, do we take the piece of property? I know what you're saying. Like you're looking at it as expressly for the purpose of the highway. I think we have to almost look at it like, yeah, that's a possible use, but where are we now? But I think also we have, you know, you're saying 5 million, but that doesn't include the cost of tearing down the old building and cleaning up the old site. So when you're looking at the price tag, you're really probably looking.
But no matter where you go, you still have that expense. So that's not fair. That's apples to oranges.
So my question, I go back to my original question. How much more approval do we need in order to accept?
Look, I'm just one person. Personally, I would have liked to have hired our own engineering firm to do testing there. I know that they've had their people, but if you buy a house, you're not going to rely on the people that are selling you the house to tell you whether or not it's passed an inspection. You hire your own person and you do your own due diligence, and we have not done that. And that's really where I'm coming from. And unfortunately, we don't have time at this point in the process to do that, because if this doesn't pass at this town meeting, Hubbell's going to move on and whatever they're going to do with it, but we won't have a bite at the apple. So, you know, that's what it would require for me to be comfortable. But I'm just one person. I'm just one gal sitting up here on the Board of Selectmen with one vote. So, you know.
So, Mr. Chairman, can I now just touch it? So, I mean, I'm a science educator, but I never became a scientist. And Phil's a scientist, all right? And no, we did not hire our own engineers. I fear as a country we have entered a whole new era where science is demeaned, where the experts, well, we know there's no such thing as global climate change, that's clear. Scientists say, and we just stomp, no, the scientists are wrong. It's false, it's fake, we don't go there. I do go there. So Phil, I'm gonna put you on the spot. You are a scientist. Would you, in my position, vote to take this property?
I'll say one thing before I give my answer. I went to kindergarten on Reed Street for 2 years. I didn't stay back, I got started early. walk down with Mrs. Carey across the railroad tracks, carefully looking both ways, and a majority of the property that is being proposed in the town was on the right-hand side of where we walked. And there's never been any buildings there of any kind. Maybe occasionally a junk tire or something like that. So for one thing, I think at least half the property has never had a building on it since the glacier left. It's clean. The left-hand side, the lower side, way down, again, not being offered to us, it's been cleaned up, but there's still things going on. I would say the 9.52, whatever it is, acres, the town, I would sign tomorrow to accept that myself if it was even given to me. That's my own personal opinion. I'm just one person, but I love information. I've been looking at that closely for a long time. You could say, well, 3 years really closely, but 63 years, you know, in general. And I would be comfortable, not every single acre of the 70, but this 9.52, yes, I would accept.
All right, I've made up my mind, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Hickey, good.
Can I have a turn since
Absolutely.
everyone else has? Okay, I'm not a scientist or a lawyer, but I do represent the town, and I try to fulfill my position at what the town wants, what the people want. In 2000, and this is being proposed by the Board of Selectmen, in 2015, this was proposed by the Board of Selectmen and brought to town meeting and was approved by the people of the town. And I'm agreeing with Dave because he's exactly right. Phil is a scientist, and for the past 3 years, as Phil said, he's been looking closely at this property. Now, Kate is the lawyer, and it seems to me, and I'm not a lawyer, I've already said that, but from what I heard from Phil over the last 3 years, and from the way this is explained to me, Kate, in black and white here, it's taken 3 years to complete all the testing. And now they've come up with, well, it wasn't 3.8 or whatever it was before, Dave, but now it's 9.52. And that's why it's back up here now, being proposed by us.
Correct.
But in 2015, it was proposed by the Board of Selectmen and voted on by the people of this town to accept it.
Correct.
So it would just make sense with all the studying and everything that's been done.
It was going to be 1.5 million.
That was just to accept the property.
We're not talking about that, Laura. All we're talking about is accepting the property.
Okay.
Okay, no, you had your turn. So that's what it says. It doesn't say anything about putting in a new highway department building, tearing down the old one, putting it across the street. All it says is that in 2015, we as a town accepted the property. I know you were talking about the 1.5 to the 5 million, but that's not in this article.
No, but I'll.
So
yeah.
that's all I have to say on it.
All right, we have a lot of business.
May I just make one last point?
Okay.
Here's my thing. If we vote to accept this property and we don't get the funding for the highway, we're gonna be stuck with these 2 buildings and this property. What's Plan B?
I don't know if I believe that based on what Kate's saying. There could be other potential buyers.
If the town owns this property, whether we decide to do anything or not, Dave, do those trucks that don't fit in your building, will they fit in those buildings?
Absolutely.
Why can't they be parked there then, since we own the property? Until something can be done later on. But those buildings, those vehicles can be parked there and out of the weather until at a point when we can decide to do something.
Along with a lot of other equipment, correct?
Okay.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion to recommend Article 22.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? Okay, 4-1. Thank you.
And thank you, Bill.
I didn't realize that you've been watching that and the interest you've had in that. I did not realiase that.
Mr. Clemens has been very involved in this.
Who would you say, once we get the bill? Yeah, I know.
Get a break now?
Yeah, well, I think
We're done, right?
No, we can, no, we can go right through this. Do you want to read? No, we can go this.
Everybody will leave if we break.
Okay.
Is
So we're
that it?
done with the warrants.
I think that's it.
That, we got the TIF, we got, yeah, you're right. That
Larry,
is
do you
it.
think that's it?
That's it.
That's it. Okay, town meeting preview, done, recommendations. Okay, discussion and possible for support, that doesn't make sense, but it's okay, for support on the municipal vulnerability
Preparedness.
grant. Thank you.
Wasn't that due
This is
today?
from Becky Neely.
Wasn't that due today? May 1st. Oh, May 1st.
Mike,
I was having an aside.
we're on the municipal vulnerability preparedness grant.
In all honesty, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to defer to Selectman Dyer, who's been more involved in this.
Okay. Good, Matt.
So yeah, just like green community status, Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the legislature have come out with, and the EEA as well, they've come out with another grant program to prepare communities across the Commonwealth for the next step in climate change. And the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant is to make, it can go towards any sort of funds to prepare us for the next step in climate change. And a lot of people think about climate change, the flooding on the coast and everything like that. And when they think about climate change in Hanson, what does that look like? And, you know, we're going to see water tables rise. We're going to look at culverts that were designed for rainfall back in the 50s be over inundated for 2050. So this grant here is going to help Hanson make that next step and start preparing for our future in a changing world. So Deb Petty has been working really, she's been doing a lot of great research about this, and she just is coming to the Board of Selectmen for a letter of support for the application that's due in the next.
Should we do
couple
that?
days.
Should we support that?
So I without any doubt, I highly recommend it. It's just like the green community status where it's free money sitting on the table. Might as well try to compete for it.
Would you make that?
Just to clarify, the only possibility of a match based that would be required of the town of Hanson can be done in kind in terms of hours, staff hours. So
Okay.
it really makes sense. There's no downside to it.
Matt, would you make that motion? You got a question?
No, no.
Okay. Would you make that motion?
Yeah, I move that the town of Hanson and the Board of Selectmen support the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant
And provide a letter there too.
and a letter there too. Yep.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded.
Matt moved it.
Oh.
Yeah, so you seconded it.
Seconded by Mr. Hickey.
Okay.
Well, fortunately, there is no such thing as global climate change, so we're just being super cautious.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nobody wanted to listen to Al Gore.
Nope.
All those in favor? 5-0. Okay, appointments. Barbara Ferguson resigns from the Board of Registers effective May 31st, 2019.
I move to accept with regret the resignation of Barbara Ferguson from the Board of Registrars effective May 31st, 2019. She has certainly been here for the duration and done amazing work for a long time. Sorry, not that long, Barbara, but long enough.
Motion's made, and do I get a second?
Second.
And seconded. All those in favor? 5-0. Okay, request. Pembroke Chamber of Commerce request for a waiver of a family season pass at the as a raffle item.
Brian, do we have anything on that from the Recreation
Somebody
Commission?
came up with that idea about the season. I like that.
It's a good, I like it's a good
When we
idea.
had them in here?
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
So do I hear a motion?
I mean,
All right, Brian supports it and says they're.
I mean, didn't they have a fundraiser for you guys? Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
good.
yeah, it isn't like it's just Pembroke coming in and asking for something and they're not, you know. Yeah.
Responding in kind.
Exactly.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I just want to make a note that, you know, I mean, I don't know where the ball fell through the cracks, but this was for a fundraiser in the past. So,
Oh, okay.
you know, just going forward, you know, let's be more due diligence and make sure that the stuff gets before us.
Oh, so they've already
before we
raffled off
drop.
this pass and then they came to us. Okay.
Correct.
And then they donated the proceeds of $1,130.
Which I think you guys have voted on.
No, we're not voting on that tonight. We'll
No.
vote on that the next
Okay,
meeting.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Good. Well, thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Okay, so I move that we
Approve.
approve the request for the waiver of the family season pass as a raffle item. Does that make sense? Request of a waiver?
It doesn't, that's why I stumbled.
No.
It's, well, they're waiving the cost.
Well, can we
It's
say
just how
that
it's
we
worded.
request the
Just-
donation of a family season pass to the Pembroke Chamber of Commerce?
Okay.
That works.
I mean-
Yeah, but it was just on the request for a waiver of the
okay.
cost for,
Do we hear a second? Matt did? Okay.
Sure.
Thanks for stepping up, Matt. All those in favor? 5-0. Did you want to hang or did you want to give us an update?
Sure, I can give you an update if you've got the time.
Yes, go ahead.
So, as you know, we were completed with all budget items. Previously, we met and deliberated and decided in a show of good faith to raise the operating assessment to 8.5%.
Okay.
Which will be reflected in the budget. The follow through with that is we had to find about $17,402, and we removed it from the snow and ice line because that's the only line that we're allowed to deficit spend. We usually go way over that. We've been incrementally ratcheting that up, but so it's not affect any of the other town departments.
Okay.
You know, raise wise or anything like that. We're gonna leave everything else as is. That still accounts for no, you know, should something change with Article 6 and 7, that could send us back to square one, which would have to find another 170K in the budget. But right now, we increased it to 8.5%. That's our math, $9,670,975 for the operating assessment for Hanson.
can I have that one more time?
I'll send you it electronically, Mary. If you want. I've got, because we made the other adjustments in snow and ice.
Okay.
That'll be easier to give you.
Excellent. Thank you.
That's
So
great.
that's it.
Yeah.
So now we'll see if the school committee can do it.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Good.
Okay, and on behalf of the highway department, that's great, that's not an issue. The question I have though, and Kate's not here, I was always under the impression that once a snow and ice line was set, it could only go up, it couldn't go down.
It hasn't been set yet.
Previous years, there's no increase this year as compared to last year. So you're actually reducing the line.
It's an operating budget line, it can be increased or decreased.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be set at town meeting, it hasn't been set yet.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank
Anything
you.
else?
Nope, that's
All
it.
right.
I figured you didn't want to wait to the end.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, old business, nothing. Town administrators report? Mike?
Quickly, Mr. Chairman, as I think everybody's happy to see, the cleanup at JJ's began yesterday. It was wrapped up, as I had mentioned before, with the DEP and the release of their permitting, and then there were some weather issues. I did go down there and have a conversation just because I was curious when they started to take things away in terms of the actual amount of hazmats in there. And as it so happened, because the ceiling was asbestos, the ceiling obviously fell and it sat, everything was hot at that point. So I just thought you might find that interesting. It wasn't one little piece of this, that, the other thing. The entire pile at that point was contaminated because the asbestos fell over.
But to that point, Mike, there's been some speculation on social media that people are just doing whatever they want willy-nilly and not in compliance with environmental protection regulations, and this was overseen in conjunction with the DEP.
To a fault.
Yeah.
Oh, to a fault. And
you
again,
have to have a permit to do a demo from DEP.
we have to have a permit from us and from DEP, and DEP has, again, the whole reason this was held up is because DEP was doing its due diligence. So, and DEP, there's all reporting, and I mean, this isn't a process where here's your permit, go with God. There's reporting that goes on continuous throughout the cleanup.
And I know it took a little longer than people wanted, but we are appreciative of the new owner.
Absolutely.
Stepping up and taking care of it.
And I couldn't agree with you more. And the thing that was most frustrating for me was the need to come back to the Board of Selectmen and continue to report that there had been no movement, knowing that and I know that you did appreciate it, but having to state it publicly, knowing that this gentleman was doing his darnest to clean this up, not only because it was something he was committed to do, but it was practical for him because he owned the building right next door and had spent an awful lot of money rehabbing that. So a horrible pile, whether it's hazardous material or just horrible looking, certainly did him no good in terms of trying to, move forward on his other project.
And at the end of the day, it didn't cost us any money.
And at the end of the day, it took
look
longer than we wanted
to.
to, but it did not cost us any money, and there was no exposure to us as well.
Yeah.
Good point.
Besides money, my big concern was once we put a shovel in there, what are we buying? So.
Yeah. Yep.
And again, it would have been prevailing wage, and we wouldn't have been able to do it. Actually, we didn't. I don't think we had the money, even in the, even if we were to take all the money out of the FinCom reserve.
Right. We had the money for the fence, but then FinCom said no on the rest of it.
So that actually, as I said, is pretty good news. We are, before the Board of Selectmen, probably the end of May, beginning of June, we will be discussing with a company the potential of a host agreement for the cultivation of retail marijuana. That is not to say that the retail marijuana would be sold here in the town of Hanson. It will not. It has not been approved by, or it's been disapproved by the town. However, allowable within the current zoning is the cultivation of such.
In the industrial park.
In the industrial park over towards East Bridgewater. So on the 15th of May, as is required in the whole process with the state, this particular organization, this outfit, will be holding a public hearing, a public meeting. Hearing's the wrong word. It's not a hearing, but it's an information sort of gathering, interaction with whomever from the community wishes to have the discussion about their project. That will be held here. I've allowed them to hold it here on the 15th of May at 6 p.m. Again, it's a requirement to move forward with the state and to come before the Board of Selectmen to then discuss a host agreement. So I've been doing some initial work with Kate in terms of what that host agreement would look like. We'll be getting a draft well before I schedule a meeting with the proponent. But in a sense, it's the best of both worlds. There could be some significant tax revenue from it. It will not be sold here in the town of Hanson, and to the point where more than likely no one will even know what's going on behind those four walls and that roof. It could be auto repair, it could be, sewing, it could be anything. It will not be obnoxious.
So my quick question on that, can you confirm, and I don't expect you to have the answer, confirm with Kate, how would we recoup tax revenue from it? So if they're the growers and they got to pay us tax, then they deliver it to the retailers, let's say in the next town over.
Yeah.
Then the retailers are paying tax. How does that work? So
well, the retailers aren't paying us tax.
No, we don't.
No. I realize that.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, so if you're a cultivator, you pay the town you're cultivating in a tax?
You're a business. Yes. Yeah, you're a business, just like...
Okay.
So on top of everything else, yeah, they'd be paying taxes on the building. They'd be paying property tax. But
Okay,
on top
on
of
the
that,
building property, but I'm talking about on the product that they're selling?
Yes, but on top of that, it's generally a 3% cut that the town would
Just
get.
double check that, because it seems like you're double dipping.
No,
because the guy that's growing, so he's gonna pay the town tax, and then when it gets to the retail outlet, they're selling it, and it's
Right.
being taxed again.
Everybody gets a cut.
Everybody gets a cut.
No, I'm happy with it. I just want to be sure that's
and I'll reconfirm. I'll confirm it with Kate.
No,
But
that's
yeah,
what I want to happen, just-
I'm pretty certain.
Okay, good.
We spoke as of recently as today about it.
And then to also interject while we're on this topic, I sent this to Mike, and maybe we can post it as a selectman meeting if anyone else is interested. But Andrea Cabral, who was a
she's the former sheriff of
yeah,
Suffolk County.
Suffolk County, that's what it was. And now she's in the business of marijuana. She's coming to Brockton on May 8th at 6:30 at Legion Parkway to kind of do like a Q&A about the process and host community agreements and whatnot. So I sent that to Mike, and he said he was interested. I'm pretty interested in it, and I'm not sure if anyone else here would be interested. It's just might be good information as we go down.
And I'll go with you if you carpool me into Brockton.
All right, sounds good. And I'll show you all the trees we've been planting.
Mr. Bloss can't afford the gas.
Yeah.
Drive by my house.
Be careful, Matt may be walking, so be careful what you sign up for.
I'm not walking to Brockton.
Go ahead, Mike, sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. I wanted to make the board aware, we haven't touched upon it in a couple of meetings at least, that the Complete Streets project up at the corner of County and High Street and Liberty Street, We were able to get an extension on that project. Originally, it needed to be done by the end of this fiscal year, which of course is rapidly approaching. The problem that we encountered is one of the pieces of equipment, the arm that is going to control the lights and actually be the lights, for some odd reason, and I'm not sure why this is, but it is what it is, that you back order those months and months and months. So we will not actually be in possession of that, even though we put in for it a month, 2 months or so ago. We won't see that for another 3 months. So the state recognized that as an issue. So that project's been pushed forward a little bit. I'm happy to say, and I don't want to, as I did with the last time I brought this up, hopefully this will come to fruition this time. The Recreation Commission last night made an offer to a different gentleman for the Recreation Director. And I'm glad that I didn't mention the other gentleman's name because at the 11th hour it didn't come to pass. So I am going to be sitting down and speaking with that gentleman tomorrow, and then based on my opinion and my recommendation, we will finally have another person in place to be the Recreation Director. And hopefully, you know, given some of the conversation that happened here not that long ago in terms of the current and potential future situation at the camp, that this gentleman will be able to help guide us through the issues that are in front of us. Other than that, we could touch upon this, I guess, in the committee updates, but I'll jump ahead a little. We are distributing an update to the reuse committee, the McQuon Reuse Committee, from Keller Williams. I had mentioned to this board, and obviously to that board a while back, that we would be holding meetings every 2 weeks. And I don't want to say hold their feet to the fire, because that gives the wrong impression, but to make sure that we're on top of it and we knew where things were going. But given that if there wasn't really the need to drag, they're actually in New Hampshire, to bring them down, that we would just give updates to that particular committee and to this board if it wishes as well. So I have that update. I'm actually going to distribute it tomorrow, and if the board is interested in it, I'm more than happy to give it to this board as well. The only other thing that I will mention is Selectman Bloss had mentioned to myself and to Mary, and I'm fully supportive of it, to take a look at using the tool that was created by the Board of Selectmen in terms of reviewing my performance. I think the notion at this point is to perhaps do it every quarter. And what I'm suggesting is that we do it the first meeting in June, because that will be at that point a quarter from when the board adopted it to, well, it'll be a quarter, it'll be 3 months. So I believe if you don't already have it, Mary will be distributing the tool that was agreed upon at the time. So take a look at it, and we'll do that again. We'll schedule that, whatever the first meeting is.
I think it was in this package, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
It is. That's right.
And that is, I did also want to mention, and I don't want to get into great detail on it because it's actually getting into something Phil would understand better than I would. There was a spill, as everyone is aware, of oil off of Winter Street back, I believe it was either Thursday or Friday. I just wanted to mention that I've had conversations with Hanover in terms of whether it's appropriate for the two towns to approach whatever needs to be approached going forward. So I guess I just wanted the board to be aware that we are cooperatively starting a conversation with our adjacent town as to what the next steps are.
Okay, good.
And that's
you get back to us on that.
what I got, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just had one thing in my notes a couple of meetings ago. I just have a follow-up trigger here, asking about building inspector for auto shop.
Oh, that was the guy that we had put on notice. We're gonna go back and have Bob Curran check him out in another 3 months.
Yes, I will
Right.
check with Bob on that.
Okay.
I think
Some
we're all
You're right,
set.
Matt.
but not all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I brought that up in the last meeting, but yeah, good point.
Similarly, can we set some kind of a little, every quarter or every 6 months, Bob goes around and does a count on the auto dealer sites, because they've got licenses and
On the sites and the amount of vehicles they
God
have.
love them, I swear, as soon as we reconfirm and, you know, their license, you look on this, the lot, and all of a sudden they've added like 4 or 5, and there's one in particular that seems to do that quite often.
Yeah, I don't see that as unreasonable. I'll bring that to
Okay,
your attention.
approved minutes. April 9th, 2019, regular, April 16th, 2019, regular and executive, not to be released, and April 23rd, 2019, regular.
I move to approve April 9th, 2019 regular, April 16th regular session and executive session to be held, and April 23rd, 2019.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you. Community reports. We can be brief so we can get anything on the 200th anniversary?
No, we just met last, I mean, we did meet, but it's nothing critical.
Right.
Nothing
Okay.
material.
Final Plymouth County, Matt.
I believe we're meeting next week.
Okay. McCon School reuse.
Pass.
Hanson School repair.
We did meet 2 weeks ago. I think we're meeting again May 16th. We did not have a quorum, so we did not actually conduct any business. Where we will I have talked to Mike McHugh to see about reducing the number on the committee from 7 to 5.
And we'll have that on the next full board meeting agenda.
Yeah, because that stinks. You're going to a meeting and then you're just a little shy, so. Okay, we'll take care of that. All right, that being said, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's made and seconded?
Hold on.
I don't, hold on. Was it seconded?
Yes, by
Yes.
me.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Hickey. Yes, go ahead.
One other announcement that I know you did in the last meeting, the Arbor Day presentation.
Mary went over it.
Yeah, she did it right in the beginning.
Yep.
Oh, all right, I missed that.
It's,
It was before you got here, Dave.
Mary said it was 10 a.m. on this Friday.
Thank you.
At the library.
At the library.
At the library.
And we will have a canopy. I don't know how many people it will fit because unfortunately, it looks like it's gonna rain again. And I can only postpone this. We can only postpone this so many times. So.
Time of the year.
All those in favor? 5-0.
Mary, did you
Good
want
night.
these
Thank you.
back for anything, or?